Hello and welcome to Freedom Watch. I'm Judge Andrew Napolitano here, defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. Are social conservatives really socialists? Would they rather expand the size of the state if it furthers their moral agenda? If not, then why do they champion big government causes like a constitutional amendment to ban gay marriage? When did we cede authority to marry from our hearts to the government? Some people have forgotten that the original state-based marriage laws were meant to keep blacks from marrying whites. Thank goodness we got rid of those. Conservatives have spoken out against same-sex marriage and in support for the continuation of unequal laws that provide tax incentives to married couples. These sorts of tax laws provide favorable policies to those likely to do what the government wants, similar to communist China's birthing policies, thereby expanding the tax base for the government. This is an example of how corrupt and dishonest the income tax is, because it redistributes wealth to the government's favored constituencies. Why are those who choose not to marry being unfavorably punished via the tax system? Do we not have an equal protection clause that requires the government to treat everybody the same? And then, of course, there's corporate welfare. Why do both Republicans and Democrats want to use tax dollars to save the corporations that they prefer? How could people in the government who have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution, who are lawfully obliged to treat all persons equally, bail out some and let others die on the vine? Where, oh where, did the idea of a government safety net for corporations come from? Not from the Constitution, that's for sure. Joining me now is Andy Levy, co-host of Fox News Channel's Red Eye, and a person with whom I love to discuss these grand philosophical issues. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, Judge.
All right, let's start out with same-sex marriage. George Bush arguably got reelected in 2004 because Karl Rove and a lot of Republicans succeeded in getting the issue of same-sex marriage on the local ballot. That is, shall it be banned under certain state constitutions? And the social conservatives came out in droves to vote in favor of those amendments. And oh, by the way, while they were there, vote for the reelection of George W. Bush, even though this is really not something the president has anything to do with.
Right.
Are these people really defenders of the Constitution, or do they just want to use big government to further their own personal or group social agendas?
No, I think it's the latter. You know, there's just, you cannot, on the one hand, say you favor small government, and then on the other hand, say you want the government to enforce your personal notion of morality. That they're utterly incompatible. And, you know, you've got people like James Dobson who are out there supporting candidates based solely, for the most part, on their stances on gay marriage and abortion. But in the meantime, supporting people like Dan Coats in Indiana, who for the last 8 or so years has been lobbying in Washington, lobbied for Bank of America to get corporate bailouts, lobbied for Chrysler to get corporate bailouts, lobbied for steel tariffs, lobbied for cap and trade. In no sense of the word are these people conservative.
All right, before we get to the issue of the bailouts, and you've given great examples, and I thank you for it, just to follow up on the same-sex marriage, why does the government care? What business is it of the government who marries whom? What conceivable governmental goal is furthered by the same-sex marriage prohibitions?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to ask someone like James Dobson, because I, for the life of me, can't figure it out. The bottom line is social conservatives and liberals in this day and age are all prohibitionists. It's just a question of what they want to prohibit, and it's just a question of what their personal morality is. Liberals want to ban salt. Liberals want toys out of Happy Meals. Conservatives don't want people getting married if they don't like those people. There's absolutely no difference right now.
So who is left to say the government has to stay within the confines of the Constitution? There are areas of human behavior immune from government regulation.
Pretty much just you, Judge.
Pretty much just the libertarians who truly believe that the Constitution means what it says.
Right, and you know, I get told by a lot of people that libertarians need to grow up and need to be part of the Republican Party and get out there and work for the Republican Party and vote Republican. And I'm not going to do it. If I see a mansion that I like and it's got some great properties, it's got great lighting, great space, but there's an entire wing of that mansion that scares the hell out of me, maybe it's haunted or something, I'm not buying that mansion. I'm not joining a political party that has an entire wing that scares the hell out of me because they want to enforce their notions of personal morality on me and every other American.
Do you agree with me that we don't have two parties in this country? We have a one-party system. It's really the big government party. It's got a Republican wing that likes war and deficits and assaults on civil liberties. It has a Democratic wing that likes welfare and taxes and assaults on commercial liberties, but they both want to use their power in the government to force their notion of personal behavior on the rest of us.
Absolutely. And again, they're on different issues, but the outcome is the same. Both parties think they know what's best for other people. And it's just amazing to me. Conservatives will rail against government-run health care and say it's not the government's business. Stay out of my life. But
right.
By the same token, they'll go out there and do similar things on other issues, and they don't recognize the disconnect. Neither party recognizes it.
All right, switching gears now to the corporate bailouts. How can conservative Republicans even make the argument that there should be a taxpayer safety net for poor decisions made by business people who didn't anticipate what would happen in the free market? The essence of the free market is you invest your own money, or you invest money that people have entrusted with you, and you make money from it or you lose money from it. And the government just makes sure that you don't commit fraud. But the government doesn't reimburse you if you lose your money.
No, I mean, the essence of the free market is you sink or swim based on your ability. At least that's supposed to be the essence of the free market. But there is no way conservatives can justify doing it. A true conservative wouldn't justify doing it, at least not in the sense that I understand the word conservative to mean. Barry Goldwater, I don't think, would justify doing it.
Right.
But the Republican Party hasn't had someone like Barry Goldwater since Barry Goldwater, really. I mean, even...
Well, it does have Ron Paul now, who of course, is the champion of the free market and of small government and of following the Constitution. He runs as a Republican. I think I can explain his own view just for the convenience of it in Texas, where he happens to live. But he's really persona non grata with the big government Republicans, which is almost all the other Republicans in the Congress. I mean, you just mentioned Dan Coates. I don't know what he and Ron Paul would even have in common, except that they would be members of the same party.
And that's the thing. I don't know what kind of a party it is that has Ron Paul and Dan Coates in it. What does that party stand for? I have no idea.
You would also agree with me, then, that the Tea Party is a positive movement, and if they put up a candidate who is against the Republican, you would encourage people to vote for the candidate that they want to see in office, even if it means that the Democrat might get in. Because what would be the difference between the Democrat and the Republican?
Right. I mean, but the Democrat and the Republican are both going to be a corporatist, so there really isn't much of a difference. The Tea Party, I think, as long as they stay focused on economics, I'm kind of with them. I get nervous with them. I don't know. I mean, they haven't really focused on social issues, but I don't know how many people who consider themselves Tea Partiers also consider themselves social conservatives. We haven't really, that hasn't played out yet. And I think we need to find out what's going on there.
And we have to be wary of the social conservatives, because they, just like the Mayor Bloomberg here in New York, worried about salt and sugar, want to tell us how to live our lives. And they have the coercive power of the government with which to compel us to live our lives the way they think we should.
Absolutely. I mean, go back to gay marriage. If you're a guy and you don't like gay marriage, don't marry another guy. But it's not the government's business to take your notion of morality, whether it's biblically based or based on any other form of morality that you've come up with in your head. It's not the government's job to enforce that on me.
When can we watch Red Eye?
Monday through Friday, 3 a.m. Eastern.
3 a.m. Eastern.
3 a.m. Eastern.
I wouldn't even ask who's up by then. I know the Fox and Friends crowd is up by then.
That's pretty much our entire audience, is the crew of Fox and Friends who have to be here for work. Yeah.
Andy Levy, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Judge.